features Keith McCormick. Keith, welcome.
Hi, always nice to chat.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So while we're sort of waiting for folks to hop on, if you're listening now or if you're listening later, let us know, first of all, if you could hear us and where you're listening from. Keith, you're in North Carolina?
Yes. Yeah, I'm in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina, so kind of halfway between the beach and the mountains, which is nice. Might even head out to the mountains this weekend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds great. And I'm in Brooklyn, and last week we had somebody at the same time in India and also Australia. So sometimes
Wow.
we do have international conversations here. Just like they were listening and asking questions, and so I'm excited to see who joins us today, and we can see the chat here. So we'll be having that. We hope to have lots of interaction. So,
I have a well-used passport. I miss going to faraway places, but it's been nice to be home for 6 months. The longest stretch, actually, it's the longest stretch that I've been in one place nonstop for 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, and you were traveling a lot for work, right?
Yeah, 85% or so.
Wow. Yeah. Where's the coolest place you've ever traveled to?
Oh, it's funny when people ask me that. They're always so surprised when I answer. My favorite trip, it wasn't a work trip, but Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody figures that I'm going to say like Nepal or something like that. And I've been to some beautiful places overseas, but that Glacier National Park is absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Wow, that's an unexpected answer for somebody who is a world traveler. That's amazing. Yeah. So the beauty is not that far away from home. That's awesome. So let's officially start. So Keith, how do you take your coffee? And if you don't drink coffee, how do you start your day?
Well, I'm a bit of a coffee snob. I like my coffee black, but unlike most coffee snobs, I kind of sip it throughout the day, which would probably horrify some coffee drinkers because it ends up becoming like room temperature and stuff, which I don't mind, but it would probably horrify some folks.
Yeah.
So I'll make a nice pot in the morning and then just kind of work it throughout the day.
Nice. Black coffee, that's kudos to you on that.
Yep.
There's a place near me that makes, you'll probably hate to hear this, there's a place near me that makes this really great soy oat milk lavender latte, which I love, and that's what I usually have in the morning.
Yeah.
So
no, it actually doesn't horrify me at all. So that folks that are really into their local, like actually I'm drinking some coffee that was made right here in North Carolina. It's a counterculture. It might even have some kind of national things, but sometimes in the midday cup I like to mix it up with like a latte or something like that.
Nice.
But the first cup in the morning, it's almost always going to be black. Yeah.
That's great. That's some brain fuel right there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you are on your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. So I kind of started doing this kind of work. I do data science. That's what everybody wants to call it now. And when I started doing it in the 90s, we called my particular branch of the field data mining, which now has this kind of sense of poking around in other people's private data, but that's not what data mining meant then. It's really just building predictive models. So I still do that, but and I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. Actually, my first job out of college was I started my own small SAT prep company.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't think we've ever talked about that. Yeah, that was something that I did because I had done that on the side during school, and it was just really interesting helping, because it wasn't just SAT prep, also helping people choose what colleges will be a good fit and everything. I just really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the one-on-one tutoring. So I've always been a bit entrepreneurial, but for years I was doing software training or consulting for others, and I really like interacting with clients directly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been moving in that direction now, gosh, maybe the last 10 years.
That's awesome. So when you were traveling and, when you were sort of going all over the world working, what kind of things would you be doing?
Well, when it started, I had this route. It was almost all domestic travel. That was in the first 10 years of my heavy travel, because, I'm more than 1 million airline miles in the whole 9 yards. But when I started as a software trainer, I would do this route. It was happened to be for SPSS, something that many people maybe had to were kind of forced to learn when they took their stats class. But they had an office in New York City. They had an office in DC. Their headquarters was in Chicago, but they also had rented training classrooms, much like people do now, even though things have moved online. And I would just kind of do this route. I'd go to Chicago for a week, and then Los Angeles for a week, and then San Francisco for a week. And I still have long-term friendships in all those cities because I would be there a couple of times a year, just working, but it was almost all domestic travel. But SPSS had an interesting business model at the time before they got bought by IBM. Their international work was through franchises. So I went down to SPSS Argentina and taught a class in Buenos Aires, which was cool. That was one of my first big international classes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there was an SPSS Australia. Of course, that's so far away that I finagled a way to stay out there for about a month because no one wants to go out for 3 days and then fly right back when it's that far. So that's kind of when the international travel started. But it really was just going from one SPSS office to another SPSS office. So I was a freelancer, but not particularly entrepreneurial at the time because I was so busy that they would just email me a schedule and I would just show up. So I was a 1099, but I wasn't really, in other words, I wasn't a W-2, I wasn't on salary, but I wasn't super entrepreneurial at that time. And then I started to branch out into consulting.
So what was the journey into consulting like?
Well, of course, the challenge was, and actually a lot of folks that have made a transition from one to the other, one of the challenges is, okay, what's okay? Is this an SPSS client? Are they potentially my client? That's always something that you have to work out. And my advice, of course, to people that are starting to branch out on their own, develop their own client base is to be super, super above board in that, because just one bad incident, can cause a real problem. But since I was representing SPSS as a trainer and not as a consultant, it usually just was a brief email exchange. Oh, this was somebody that was in class, but they want this specific thing. Is that something that SPSS Consulting would want to do? Oh, no, then it's okay for me to do it. And then off and running it went. So it was slow at first. Maybe 80% of the year was me teaching classes and 20% of the year was my own clients. But that's the ideal way to do it. There are a lot of folks that just kind of have to jump in the deep end of the pool and have no income at first. But I was very fortunate. I could slowly, over really many years, build up my own clientele while I was still earning money doing work for others.
That's awesome. That's really great. And so speaking of SPSS, you have a new book coming out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what folks can learn from that?
Oh, sure. This might, I think also from the entrepreneurial point of view, I think there might be a couple of details about this that might be interesting for folks. So I have the 4th edition of SPSS Statistics for Dummies coming out in 2 weeks. It's coming out on the 25th, according to Amazon and everybody's schedules. But it's more exciting than you would think that a 4th edition would be for me. You would think you're just doing light updates. And the reason is the whole journey is quite interesting. So I was well known in the SPSS space, and the For Dummies brand reached out to a colleague of mine, and Maida Brown, by the way, who's a fabulous consultant and blogger. She's done a lot of work for Forbes, or a lot of blogging rather for Forbes, and written a number of books herself. But anyway, I only mention her because she's a great read if people are in data science. And they reached out to her and she said, I'm somewhat moving away from the software aspect, Keith, and moving more towards management consulting. I'm not super excited about this project. But this was quite a few years ago now, so I was still very much in my software mode. I'm now, I guess I'm just a few years behind here. I'm somewhat moving more towards management consulting too. But it was an interesting project because the 1st and 2nd editions were already out. There was a gentleman who had lived in DC most of his career. He retired to Alaska. He had written the first couple of editions, and they wanted somebody to take over the series and do the 3rd edition. So when my co-author and I did it, we didn't have, or at least we didn't feel like we had a huge amount of creative control. We were on a super tight schedule. We were taking over this series. We were updating it. But the fourth edition, we really felt free to rewrite major sections of it. So it was a huge, it just takes weeks. And, anyone out there that's been involved in a book project, they know what it is. It has to be a labor of love, because if you actually did the calculation of how many hours you put into it, you would just be crying, in your spreadsheet. But it can be a really powerful experience to reconnect with the community and find out what do they need and what are the latest updates. And, SPSS is owned by IBM, so interacting with my IBM colleagues and finding out what do they need to know about the new edition and so on. So our new version.
That's awesome. So actually, it's your it's really in a new way becoming yours, right?
Exactly. So it feels more like a new book than a fourth edition usually would.
Right.
You really would think that a fourth edition is just taking a new picture of what the software screen looks like now and stuff, but it really wasn't. It was weeks and weeks and weeks of massive rewrites. So I'm more excited about it than you might imagine, given the nature of the project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is SPSS Statistics for Dummies, and it's part of the For Dummies series and the For Dummies brand. When does it come out?
Just about 2 weeks, I guess, August 25th. You never know with this kind of stuff, because books have to physically get to warehouses and stuff like that. But that's and it's been on pre-sale for quite a few weeks, already. So like any author, I'm kind of excited to find out how, statistics is not the primary part of my career anymore. I've really moved more towards machine learning, but nonetheless, on the 25th, I'll be excited to go into Amazon and see how it does in the statistics software rankings, because that's one part of Amazon where I'm not competing with Harry Potter or the latest leadership book. I've got my little corner of Amazon, and obviously I'm hoping to be in the top 5 or something, at least on that day, and celebrate that, briefly.
Absolutely. So for those that want to pre-order it, you of course have sort of a perk with that, right? So.
Yeah, we've been doing kind of a fun thing. So, now that we're getting quite close to release, we've done, some of those, things already, but we were offering some Q&A sessions, really just to anyone that told us that they had bought the pre-sale book, just as a way that they could start to enjoy the book before the book actually came out. And we'll be doing something else too. We'll be doing something fun to celebrate when the book after the book is released. I was just talking to my co-author, Jesus, about that this morning, and we might do something really fun, like an hour and a half of free training.
Oh, cool.
Since we've been around for a while, we've chosen a topic that we hope that is going to appeal to folks that are new to SPSS, as well as folks that have been using it for decades like us. And it's not that easy to find a topic that fits for both, but we think we've done it. We're going to talk about what the add-on modules do. Because folks that are new to SPSS don't have access to the add-on modules. You have to pay extra money for those. So there's a natural curiosity among newcomers about what are these things? Is it something I should maybe invest in? And then for veteran users, if they're working with a work copy, they may have never seen these modules before, even if they've been using SPSS for 10 or 15 years, and they can be quite powerful. But there's a lot of there's an air of mystery around what they do, since not everyone has seen them. So anyway, that's what we plan on doing, and we'll probably time that to be about a week to 10 days after the book comes out to celebrate its release. And best way, I guess, to find out about that would be to follow me on LinkedIn or just go to my website and sign up for the mailing list.
That's great. That's fantastic. So SPSS Statistics for Dummies, pre-order and also be on the lookout for that celebration webinar, I guess, event. So that's
it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious about this. How has data science and machine learning, how has that sort of evolved in recent times? Have there been changes to the industry, thanks to COVID?
Wow, there's COVID, is a whole huge thing that's impacted all of us this year. But when I think of changes that are going on in data science and machine learning, I think of some stuff that goes back a little bit further than COVID, but just a few. All the stuff like Amazon, Alexa, I've got my little, she almost thought I was talking about her on the desk here.
Yeah, you can't say the word Alexa anymore.
I can't help you with that. I don't know what you mean. We've heard that. But, devices like that, driverless cars, we all hear about this amazing stuff. But what's really been interesting is that when I'm working with a bank or an insurance company or what have you, what I'm doing, or manufacturers, what I'm doing with them hasn't changed that much. So what's going on? Well, it's because all these amazing robot driverless car stuff has been driven by something called deep learning, which I imagine a lot of folks, especially if they know me, are familiar with. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you need to use for loan defaults or fraudulent insurance claims. So in other words, long story short, you'd be surprised how little it's changed, even in the face of these dramatic changes in what we see, around us in the world. What's changed, I think, with COVID-19 is that IBM has a new CEO this year. And that was going to be a big thing at IBM's annual conference, which I frequently go to. Yeah. IBM's not a huge part of my career, at the moment, but it was for so long. And I have so many friendships, over 100, probably 200 LinkedIn, connections are, IBM because of my long time in the SPSS world. So I usually go to that conference. Naturally, this year it hasn't happened. So one huge thing is conferences are moving online. But the other thing is, when the CEO took hold, he said, as IBMers, we have to, I'm connected to so many folks, I saw this in my LinkedIn feed, that we have to be aware of the fact that people are going to have pets and kids at home and things like that. And we have to be careful to be very understanding about that. And we're all going through that this year.
Right.
But a year ago, big companies like IBM weren't as open to work from home. It's not that it didn't exist, but they weren't as open to work from home as they are now. And clearly, Google, Facebook, IBM, there's so many, are constantly posting about how they're moving tens of thousands of people online. I live just a few minutes away from Research Triangle Park, which is a big corporate park. IBM has a presence there. Red Hat, actually recently acquired by IBM, has a presence there, a bunch of big companies. I'm very curious just how many RTP folks are going to be work from home permanently now with COVID-19. I think that's really going to happen. It's probably going to change the whole feel of living, in a neighborhood that's not far from that corporate park.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, a lot of, Twitter just said that, probably a month or two ago, that their employees are going to be work from home forever. There are a lot of sort of companies in the tech space and things like that in the online space that are moving that way.
So as a rule, so it's not just going to be majority work from home. It's going to be the default is work from home. And what company again?
Twitter.
Twitter. Wow, that's really something.
Yeah. So that's really interesting that you've been seeing that as well. In sort of the corporate tech space.
And, if that happens, then people are going to rethink conferences. Online conferences this year was kind of the emergency plan B. But I'm envisioning conferences that are face-to-face every other year and virtual every other year. I don't have a particular conference in mind. I'm just thinking that a lot of the conferences that I go to, it's hard to even imagine how much that will change. But I don't think, I bet there's going to be a lot of online conferences in 2021.
Yeah.
And it will be because they choose to do it, not because they had to scramble to come up with an alternative.
Right.
They're going to think, wow, last year's virtual conference was pretty great. Let's just do that again.
Yeah.
But we're going through some permanent long-term changes, and data science by its nature is fairly work-from-home friendly. So there's going to be this mass exodus to work from home. Before this year, I think the longest I probably had been home was a month,
Mm-hmm.
and that had only happened 3 or 4 times in 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, typically I
you're
was
home for 6
home
months.
because frankly, even at the holidays, if I had some kind of gig in Bangkok in early December, a lot of times I would say, well, why fly home? It's
Right.
Christmas.
Right.
I can spend 3 weeks over here, and I did that a lot. So I would spend the
Oh,
holidays
that's
overseas
awesome.
about half the time, more than half
That's
the time.
awesome. Yeah. Well, it's a different life, and it's funny you mentioned conferences because like TED proper went completely virtual this year, and they actually set a precedent for TEDx to be for TEDx organizers to create these legitimate, really professional looking virtual conferences.
Yeah.
And of course, we're seeing virtual summits become more of a thing. We're seeing podcasts and live shows become more of a thing. And these virtual conferences.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that insight that we're probably gonna be staying that way, right?
Has TED hinted at the fact that they might be virtual in 2021?
I haven't heard anything yet, but and I'm seeing a lot of the TEDx's be they're free to do their own format or whatever the case is, but virtual, it's just as legitimate as being in person. It turns out, it's just as you still get the branding, you still get the and you don't have to spend however long traveling, right?
Yeah.
So are you doing any conferences this year? How has that space been for you?
Well, I am. So I had a conference scheduled in the Netherlands for the spring that got rescheduled twice before it went online. So that was really quite an experience. But that ended up going extreme. It actually ended up being offered mixed. I was on a big screen, but there were some people in the room.
Wow.
So a couple hundred people total, I think, and probably 40 of them were in the room. So when we got to Q&A, it was really interesting because I was on camera. I couldn't see them; they could see me, but I could hear their voices, and it was just a fun way to do Q&A because they were actually passing around a physical microphone in the room. So that was really
cool.
something.
Yeah.
I've got a conference coming up week from Monday, actually. So really coming up soon. That's one of the reasons that I'm having one of those days where I'm on a Zoom call. It seems like almost every hour. We were talking earlier that we're both having that kind of week, and it's to get ready for this workshop. So it's with an organization called iAds. What they're trying to do is figure out how to define data science to help universities, recruiters, employers. It's by longstanding. It's a nonprofit that's been created by data scientists with just a lot of years of experience with a really extensive advisory board. So I went to a live conference in Anchorage, Alaska. Part of the reason, frankly, I chose to go is because it was in Anchorage. I mean, I'm one of those people that will sometimes choose my conference by the fact that it's in a cool city, and I'm pretty sure that was my 50th state. So
wow.
And in fact, I think I've had a work gig. That kind of counts as a work gig because I was there at the conference. So I think I've had a work gig in every state. I think no,
nice.
Maybe not.
That's awesome.
But I've been to every state for sure.
What a milestone, right?
I crossed Alaska off my list. Yeah. So and they had this really great workshop talking about mid-career data scientists and how they describe themselves. So this year, I reached out to them and I said, I really want to find out more about aspiring data scientists because I meet them in my training, like LinkedIn learning courses and everything. I said, let's add that to the mix. And we talked about it. And we decided that we wanted to do it. And sure enough, that is going to be the theme of the workshop a week from Monday. So there'll be a lot of heavy hitters there. I'm just kind of helping to organize. There's going to be a lot of very well-known people that are part of this workshop. But we did a survey and the whole 9 yards. We're trying to understand what training that aspiring data scientists seek out, boot camps, university, how do they do it, and then how do potential employers react to the approach that they chose? Did it work for them? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we've got a bunch of industry people from all sides of it, university, recruiters, employers to try to figure this out. So I hope certainly that if folks that are listening are into the data science thing, and if they know me, that's probably the case.
Yeah.
Thing about online conferences is they're so much cheaper.
Right.
I must have spent thousands. I know I spent thousands getting out to Alaska,
Sure.
lodging myself, registration fees that can run $1,500, $2,000. This year's registration fee is $200.
Wow.
The tenth as much, and for students, I think it's $50.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that's the other thing. That's why I think that I hope that physical conferences don't go away, but.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never chaired a conference, but I'm really thinking this every other year thing could really work, because you get people come to a virtual that couldn't afford to go to the real thing.
Right. And then people who really want to show up will go to the in-person.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. So, so we have a lot of executives and leaders and, entrepreneurs that, sort of listen. What do we need to know about data science? What do we need to know about machine learning? And, how do we have access to that information?
That's a really important question, because I don't think executives know where to go. So they probably will try to find someone's top 10 reading list, and then, maybe read 10 books, 200 to 300 pages each.
Yeah.
And then emerge from that experience feeling informed but a little lost.
Sure.
So the main thing I would say is that it's not a technology problem. We're trying to solve people problems with data science. Now, technology gets involved, but that's why I think it's a mistake, particularly for executives, to try to learn about Python and Hadoop and all these different things, figuring that, and they go in and out of fashion pretty quick too. You have to be careful about that. But executives that throw it into that, they figure, if I just hire somebody that knows the technology, that I'll be all set. But you're still solving business problems. So that's the real trick, I think, is to invest in good people. In particular, look for the person. I always give this advice to executives. Look for the person on an existing team. Maybe it's an IT team or a BI team that has a stack of machine learning books on their nightstand. There's somebody like that on your team. I can guarantee you, whoever they are, whatever industry there's somebody out there that's just interested in this stuff, and they get a stack of books on their nightstand, and every night they're reading this stuff on their own. And when they go to their middle management and say, hey, I kind of want to do this data science thing, majority of the time, their goals are somewhat dismissed or completely shut down, basically saying, hey, you would never be able to meet the requirements that HR has for, that position. You need 5 years of this and 10 years of that, and you have to be this certification. And it's crazy, because you're just waiting somebody that's already your employee, that you already have a relationship with, that knows the business, they know the data, and you're basically talking them out of doing something that they're passionate about, that they've been teaching themselves at their own expense. So I don't know why people do that. It's absolutely nuts. So my most important advice is, don't do that. Nurture from within. Don't think that you're going to hire some superstar from outside that's going to solve all your problems.
I love that advice. That's so counterintuitive,
Yeah.
But I guess you're right. I mean, people are interested in this stuff, as Alexa becomes part of many, many households, right?
I was checking for the blue light just now.
Right, because I think
if she heard you, yeah.
Did she hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. So you have some LinkedIn Learning courses on this very topic, and also, for executives, you have sort of the technical aspect of things, and you also have like what executives need to know and how data scientists can develop a side hustle. Tell us a little bit about your experience with LinkedIn Learning and what people can expect to learn from you.
Yeah, I had so much fun making that course, in particular, the executive one, that you mentioned. So for folks that don't know, a lot of people have access to LinkedIn Learning that don't know that they have access. You go into LinkedIn Learning, you click on the little play button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and I can't tell you the number of times I've been chatting with a client, said, I look forward to meeting you out at the office next week. But you were asking about something that you might want to check out, because I talk about it in one of the lectures. If you want to watch it between now and when I see you,
Yeah.
then they'll go, oh, I don't have that. I don't have like a membership to that. So I'll right on the call, I'll have them click on the little button and they'll go, oh my gosh, I'm in there. It's because the premium membership. So a lot of times it comes free. So there's a ton of these, and the library is amazing. I spend countless hours watching other authors' content. It's such good stuff. But for those that don't know, the actual development of it is they heavily curate. So it's not like Udemy. It's not like everybody's uploading stuff. There's some fantastic stuff on Udemy, but there's some stuff that maybe isn't as impressive on Udemy because people are uploading it and then marketing their own stuff. It's a marketplace. This is not a marketplace. This is a curated library. So for the most part, you have to be invited to do it as someone that's written books or keynoted or whatever it might be. So they fly you out to, not this year, but they fly you out to Carpinteria, which is a beautiful beach town right near Santa Barbara. So I get my Central California wine fix because I always end up flying in early or late so that I can go. If you've seen Sideways, the movie, that's the part of California that they're doing the wine trip. It's not up in Napa. They're doing Central California. So I go to the wineries and everything's amazing, and you're in the soundproof booth, and there's a producer, and the amount of work that they put into things are amazing. But a lot of my courses are somewhat technical. So it's me talking about what I'm doing in the software. But the executive one is more like a fireside chat. I had so much fun doing this because I'm like sitting in this chair and interacting with folks. We even act out like little skits. So it's very multimedia, and I just have so much fun doing those. And the course is done really well. It's certainly among my new ones, it's my number one course, but it's kind of climbing and views so much. It may be my number one course overall, and I think it's because there just isn't a lot of stuff out there helping executives understand how to hire, who to hire, but really everything about it. A little bit about the technology so that you know what these employees are trying to do for you and how to leverage that to get the most value. Yeah, it really was a fun course to do.
That's awesome. So if there's an executive listening, why should they take that course? What goals should they want to achieve, and what outcomes will they get?
Yeah, I was just hearing someone talk about this. I can't remember who it was. I think though it's one of the folks that is in kind of our little circle of acquaintances, Marie, but the name can't come to me. But they were talking about when executives deal with technology in general, particularly things like data science. If it was adding addition onto the company headquarters or any number of things that have a technical aspect to it, they'll want to be a part of those meetings. But when it comes to things like data science and technology, they just kind of defer, it can be an intimidating subject. So they just give it to somebody that they trust, and they kind of just throw it over the fence. And the main thing I think I leave them with after investing that hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes is feeling empowered so they don't have to do that. That this really can be a collaboration. It doesn't have to be the scary data science, technology that they just say they have some kind of business problem, they communicate the business problem, and then walk away. It needs to be much more collaborative than that. And I think that course helps them do just that, to collaborate with the data scientists, not have this technology keeping them apart.
That's great. And you have a new course coming out, right?
Yeah, this one is more for the data scientists themselves, but I'm super, super proud of this course, if for no other reason, because it almost killed me making it. It's one of my bigger courses that I've done. It's on a topic that people will probably think is one thing, but it's actually something else. So it's on doing a proper assessment of the data, which I think for most people sounds very just like exploring the data. You just kind of explore it, you get some interesting insights, and then you run to management and you share those insights. But what it really is more like, it's more like if an architect is walking a building site. What you're doing is it's how to assess the data for the purpose that you're going to come back and build this model. And that model, hopefully, is going to be put into production, possibly automating decisions throughout the organization. So there's a very specific set of tasks that you have to do. And in searching what was out there in the world for young data scientists, I couldn't find this addressed anywhere. It was just badly, badly needed. But I cover it in some detail, so it's like a half day of material. It's a serious course, but I think the folks that have discovered my other courses will really, really enjoy it because it fills an unmet need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for those who don't know, because I'll be honest, I didn't know until recently, that if you have LinkedIn Premium, you get access to these courses for free.
Yeah,
right?
Or through their company or through their university. Mm-hmm. So please don't assume, for everybody out there, please don't assume that you can't see these for free, because maybe you can.
Right.
Oh, there's something else that's new as well, which if there's a course that somebody's super excited about, maybe you're super excited about one of mine, you can buy them. You can buy them a la carte, but that's relatively new. In fact, I think it's only been about a year that was the case. Mm-hmm. Here in the U.S., at least, I think it's probably $29, so about the amount of a course. But that's not typical. I think there's, in fact, most premium members that get it for free probably don't even know that option exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the main thing is, if you've got that premium membership anyway, because you're looking for a position, or because you're a recruiter, or because of other things that you do, or your work pays for your premium membership, or you get university access, which is really quite common, then just go for it, because the content is amazing. I must spend 5 hours a week, and I think you know this about me, I'm pretty busy,
Right.
I probably spend 5 hours a week watching content in the library.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. You can set goals. You can have your weekly goal or your monthly goal or whatever it is, of how much content you're going to watch and everything like that. So it helps you stay accountable to what you're learning.
Yeah, one that I was watching one on, starting to watch a little bit on video editing. I do a little bit, but I'm not, certainly not. It's certainly not my day job, But I do a little bit of light editing to my own stuff, even things that I might just post to LinkedIn. I might, do a little bit of light editing. So I was checking that out. I happen to be a Camtasia person, for instance. I do some teaching for UC Irvine, as I think you know, and when I prepare my lectures, I record those in Camtasia, which is just a screen capture voiceover app, that a lot of folks are probably familiar with. Well, there must be 4 or 5 courses on LinkedIn Learning about Camtasia, including one that was just updated 2 months ago. It's fantastic, and it's always there when I need it. So it's rare that there's any kind of a topic, and it's not just technology. That's one of the reasons that doing the non-technical skills of data scientists in the executive course was so much fun, because even though I work for the data science team, so to speak, because the library's broken into different categories, they've got leadership and communication courses that are just fantastic.
Yeah. And in the non-technical, you cover things that, could easily fall under the leadership category. You cover things like emotional intelligence and empathy and, all that stuff. So, these courses can be really valuable for anybody. I found value in the course not being a data scientist.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I take topics that frankly would be covered sometimes in courses of their own, like managing up and managing down type things, but specifically from the standpoint of the data scientist, So if you're dealing with your boss's boss, you're going in and you're talking to a senior VP or even the chief information officer or the COO or something, right? How do you navigate the fact that this person is smart? They certainly can understand technology, but if you really get into the weeds, you might not be able to follow them. I think people probably either panic because they think that, my boss can't handle any technology talk, which is nonsense, or they just throw caution to the wind and they start talking about really nitty-gritty stuff that why would a busy person be doing that? So it's certainly stuff that would be relevant to anyone, but with that little twist on it that makes it specific to data scientists.
Awesome. So what should I have asked you that I haven't asked you?
Oh gosh, let me think. What's in the pipeline? I think the most fun thing I think to mention would be if they'll folks will just stay in touch with me. This has kind of become my COVID-19 project. I'm kind of a book guy, but it's hard to carry nice books like big biographies and stuff when you fly. So since I'm home, I've been reading more stuff that I've been meaning to read for a long time. So I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to do a book review every month, and I just did one on Kaifu Lees' AI superpowers, and I'm going to do one every month. So I would love to have folks interact with me as I do that, because even though I'm home and I can sit in my easy chair and read a book, I'm still busy. So if they can encourage me and keep me going, I think this is a fantastic way. And it's AI related, but since it's a book review, I can have fun with it. So maybe talking even things like Deep Blue, Jeopardy, and AlphaGo is a fun topic.
So do you take requests?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That would be a lot of fun to do. So I've been to mix it up. I've been watching AI related movies as well. Mostly documentaries, but also movies on things like AI safety. I always thought that was kind of a weird phrase, but that's when they call it about the whole our robot's going to take over the earth. And if you put it that way, it sounds silly, but there's a lot of really interesting people that talk about different aspects of that. So again, since I'm home and I can relax and I've got less time on the plane, I've been allowing myself this indulgence that was a little bit tougher for me to do. So I'm trying to do a book every month and a movie every month, not just that I read and watch, but talk about on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. So if anybody has any requests, or even if you just want to share what your favorite AI related documentary or movie is, write it in the comments, and he's taking requests, which I think is awesome. And I thought you're as a decidedly not AI person, right? I'm not a data scientist, but I thought your review of Kaifu Lees' book put things in pretty plain language, so that I could kind of understand why I needed to read it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm glad, and I tried to, and you probably noticed this, I tried to put a lot of links in there. So if someone did get excited about the topic, they can certainly just step away from their computer for a moment and read an actual book sitting on their couch. Right. But they can also go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and check out this particular interview or what this other person had to say about it. And I had a lot of fun incorporating them to what I did. So when I read the book, I must have spent at least 10 hours watching interviews with Kaifu Lee so that I could recommend what to check out if you want to know what was on his mind as recently as a month ago.
Right.
Because he's a very influential guy, very interesting guy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, two ways are really ideal. One is super simple. Most people are probably on LinkedIn right now, so you can just open a new window because you don't want to accidentally turn us off. Open a new window, and if you do Keith McCormick, data science or something like that, you'll probably find me. I'm actually one of the lucky ones where it's just LinkedIn / in my name. Yeah. It's not a weird code and a bunch of numbers because there's a lot of Keith McCormicks out there, but I was able to get it. So my LinkedIn is actually Keith McCormick, But the other way is, there's all kinds of other platforms and other things going on, like that event that my co-author and I are going to do. So that way, if you just go to keithmccormick.com, just sign the mailing list. And, I don't have a newsletter going out, once or twice a week or anything like that. It's going to be less frequent than that. But that's going to be the best kind of one-stop shopping for everything that I'm up to. Books, conference appearances that I might be making, and so on, including that bit about IATS, which is coming up a week from Monday, and I really think will be a fun workshop. If people out there are working data scientists now, please consider coming, just because we really want to figure out what's going on so that employers and data scientists can be talking the same language when they get hired. It's really just to benefit the data science community that we're putting a lot of effort into that. So those are the two, keithmccormick.com and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.